Hi, welcome to Cap at Home. I'm Miss Van. Today we're going to do monoprints. And so to show you what they are, I'm using cardboard and bubble wrap to make these print blocks here. And you can get the texture on both sides, or from both types of material. So here's what they look like finished. So you will need some cardboard, some bubble wrap. I have here some drawn images to make your monoprints out of. These are the ones in black marker. You'll need a black marker. You'll want a ruler to make sure that when you cut out your cardboard it has square edges. You'll also want a couple different sizes of paintbrush. So to get these backgrounds nice and even, it's a good idea to paint the background and allow it to dry and then do the print on top after it's dry. So I have here also some colors of acrylic paint. I've got yellow, blue, red, black, and white. I've got my trusty recycled palette, a bucket of cold water for rinsing my brush. I've got some paper towel for when I change colors so I can dab my brush and make sure that I'm not mixing colors when I don't want to be. And then I've got scissors. I've also got some dedicated work surfaces that are specifically for when I paint. So here is what those look like, and here's another one of my prints, like all done up. This is perfectly dry. I made these the other day, so they're ready to be printed onto. We also going to want some masking tape. So I'm going to untape this one here in the corner, and I'm going to leave the other ones taped in place. You'll also want to have a trash can nearby just so that you can remove your unwanted pieces of tape and it doesn't get your work surface all cluttered. So I like to tape down my edges of my art with masking tape, and you get these really nice crisp edges, and it also helps to prevent your artwork from bending or warping while it's wet. You'll also want, if you're going to layer your print like this, you're going to want some glue. I highly suggest you use hot glue, that way you don't have to wait for it to dry, but any type of glue will work. So I have my hot glue gun and some refills set aside over here, and that is ready to go. So I have chosen a few images that I drew earlier. So this is like a lily flower, and then this is like the green grassy part of the lily stem. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace the flower with bubble wrap and get that really cool circular print so that really stands out. And then I'm going to trace the stem part on the back side of some corrugated cardboard. So you'll really get to see some different layers of texture for this one. So in order to get started, I've got some bubble wrap here. And I'm just going to cut a square. So this was one of my templates. It's a little bit difficult to see, but it's all in pencil. So if you want to be able to see it through the bubble wrap, it's a good idea to trace thicker black lines with a Sharpie marker. That way you can see it through this kind of like surface. So I'm just going to cut a section of this bubble wrap. And I'm going to do all of my tracing with the paper or with the bubble wrap and the corrugated cardboard on the smooth side because it's just easier that way. So I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to take out my drawings of lilies and I'm going to trace them onto the flat side of the bubble wrap. And I'm getting pretty curly with these, which is fun to do. So I'm going to be using a couple different sizes of paintbrush for this project. I've got a 1-inch thick paintbrush that I'm going to use to apply the background to the cardboard. I have, this is like a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch paintbrush that I'm going to use to apply the paint. This is dry from yesterday. I'm going to use this to apply the paint onto the bubble wrap or the cardboard surface. And then I'm going to have a fine detail brush so that I can go back in and add like outlines or little smiley faces or any other kind of fine detail that I might feel like adding. So I'm going to do all my cutting at once. I'm going to set this off to the side and I'm going to start cutting this out. And I'm also going to get, let's see, here's my corrugated cardboard. So I'm going to want 2 pieces of corrugated cardboard. I'm going to want one separate piece to cut this out on, and then a bigger piece to kind of glue it all to and hold it together. So this is going to be my extra piece. And then I'm going to measure out, I think I'm going to use this canvas. It's already kind of green on the background. And I'm going to take my ruler, and that is 9 by 7 square. So let's see, this is just a little bit more than 9. So I'm going to mark this. I'm going to be kind of careful to line up the edge of my ruler so that I get nice straight lines at right angles. A lot of rulers will have that little overlap at the end here where the numbers start and the metal of the ruler ends, and a lot of times you'll find that even if one side is measurements in a different like measuring type, that like if one side is centimeters and one side is inches, a lot of times they will line up and kind of start from like the same edge. So if you line those up with the edge of whatever it is that you're measuring, having 2 points to kind of like go from is a good way to make sure that you have a nice perpendicular line. Because if you only measure from 1 point, it's easy to get it kind of crooked. Even if it's only slightly crooked while you're measuring it, it might kind of get exaggerated while you cut. So this looks pretty good. I'm going to use this to make my print backing, so I'm going to set this off to the side, and then I'm going to use this piece to trace this onto, but I've got to cut this out a little bit first. So I'm going to do that. And I like that this is vertical, so I'm going to keep this kind of on the vertical side of the corrugated cardboard because I like how it will look. If you look at the stems on plants, a lot of times like the parts closest to the bottom like of the plant where the ground meets it, you'll see a lot of like vertical lines and repetition. So I'm going to use that to my advantage with the corrugated cardboard. But like I said, I'm going to do all of my tracing on the flat side of the cardboard because that just makes things a little bit simpler. So I think I'll probably end up using my detailed paintbrush to put these lines back into the print later on. And I'm going to make sure that the corrugated side is down. And I'm going to line this up. And I'm going to line the bottom of my template. This is now my template. This that I just cut out is now my template. So I'm going to line the bottom of my template up with the bottom edge of the cardboard so there's less area for me to cut from later. And I'm going to trace these really kind of pointy, fun lily leaves. So I'm done with that piece now. I'm going to set it off to the side, and here it is on the cardboard. And now I'm going to use the bubble wrap to cut out the shapes of the flowers. I think it's pretty neat, the kinds of textures you find in like ordinary objects. You wouldn't necessarily think to use packaging material as art supplies, but I think it's just a fun way to do things. You can also use this method to make some more abstract shapes, and if I have any leftover space on the back of my cardboard print, I might add some of these little pieces. So I'm not going to throw them away just yet. When I was a child, we had lilies in the yard growing up, so I always really liked them, and they're really bright orange and fun. And then I just kind of always kept drawing them and noticing them, and then one of my neighbors has them in the front yard, and I'm like, oh, I'm inspired. I like these shapes that are coming from the negative space, which is the space around my subject. This one's a little bit more complicated to cut out. I kind of like drew it so that you can see kind of like the way the petals of the lily kind of fall in a way that like shows some overlapping too. But if you just want to play with shapes, it is your artwork, and that will look just as good. You'll have to excuse my background noise today. There's some excitement next door. One of my neighbors is taking down a tree. So I am inside today, and it's kind of a nice change of pace to work indoors. And that would be my daughter Josie, if you can hear her in the background. All right, so I have these. I'm gonna set some of these bigger pieces off to the side. So we're not gonna need those for right now. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut the cardboard. You can really make any shape you want, but when it comes to block printing or monoprinting, it's a good idea to keep the shapes pretty simple. But I did make a two-part print that I might experiment with that looks like a hedgehog. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But that utilizes the bubble wrap as well as the corrugated cardboard too. So the first part that I'm going to use for the hedgehog is kind of this like spiky shape, and then I've got the middle part which is going to be this bubble shape, and then I'm going to use the fine brush to add some of the features. We'll see how that looks. I'm pretty excited about my little hedgehog. I also originally did a print with like clouds or weather shapes, like this star and crescent moon and cloud turned out really, really well, and you can tell they're just really basic, simple shapes. And so the detail from the texture really shows up super well. All right, so I think I'm gonna put this part on first, and it kind of hangs off the edge a little bit, so we'll see how that treats us. So I've got my trusty glue gun over here, it's all ready to go, and I need to add another glue stick. I'm just going to add some glue. You gotta work kind of quick because even though it's already pretty hot, you only have a little bit of time before it cools off to the point where it's not super tacky anymore. And I got a new glue stick pack, and it's a little bit thicker. And this is a new glue stick coming through, and it works, but it's just a little bit newer, so it's like a different consistency. And when you use a hot glue gun, it's a good idea to have like a piece of scrap paper that you put underneath the part where the glue comes out to kind of catch the drips of the glue. And I kind of have that right here next to me. Oh, this is a fun, wacky shape that I might do something with. I just kind of like that. I've got about 3 or 4, I think I have 4 pieces of cardboard already primed and ready to go. So we'll see. We'll see what fun things I can come up with. And then I have a few different types of prints that I made, and then this one that I'm working on now. My daughter has never heard a chainsaw before. And the tree next door is pretty big. But she's doing pretty well. I'm impressed. All right. So these flowers are going to end up being overlapped a little bit too. Alright. That was unintentional. And guess what? Hot glue is hot. You better be careful when you use it. Alright, so here's this. Let's see how this turns out. I'm excited to see how this turns out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of clear off some space here. These pieces of paper I'm going to throw away. I don't think I'm going to use all of this bubble wrap. There are just a few. I'm going to throw some of them away because I can't keep them all. Alright, that is great. Now I'm going to mix some paint. So I've got yellow for the lilies, and I have this nice green kind of flat blendy color, and then I have a really cool gradient. I was having fun experimenting with gradients. So I chose one base color and then I tinted it with black and white, and that kind of shows some slight value changes. Actually, they're pretty drastic. It starts like it's black in one corner, white in the other corner, and you get this really cool gradient from light to dark in the blue, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And then I'm going to use a pretty bright shade of green to do the leaves on my lilies here. So I'm going to take my medium-sized brush, and I added a big dollop of yellow and a small dollop of blue. And I might add some white to it just to make that green nice and light so that it pops against the dark green background. That's looking good. So that's a nice bright green. I think I'm gonna touch more yellow just because it got a little bit muted with the white. All right, that's really nice and vibrant. So I'm gonna be kind of careful. And just try not to get the green where I'm gonna put the yellow. And I want to put the paint on kind of thick because also it will show up if I add some extra water. So I have my water off to the side right here. And I'm going to... All right, made it back. All right, so here's the green on here. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it so I make sure it really shows up. Now I'm going to do the flower part, so I need my paper towel because I'm changing colors, and I want these colors to stay nice and vibrant. And so I'm going to add some bright yellow to the bubble wrap. And I'm getting a little bit of bleeding from one color to the next, but I don't mind so much. It's still gonna look great. So here's my block print, or my monoprint. Block printing is slightly different. Here's my monoprint. Mono means one, so I'm going to try and get all of it in one press. So I have it all painted, and I'm going to press it down pretty firmly. And I did get the flowers to show up pretty well. And I'm still going to want to outline it. And then I did kind of, you can still see kind of some of the green in here. So I'm going to outline that a little bit. But I'm going to do all my outlining at once. So this time I'm going to try and do a two-part print with my Hedgehog and onto this blue gradient right here. So I'm going to use the yellow again for the background of the Hedgehog. And I'm really going to put this paint on super thick because I want it to show up. I really like using acrylic paint. It's such a bold medium to work with, and you can really get super bright colors. Because acrylic is like kind of a type of plastic, you can layer it and you can put it on thickly enough so that you can't necessarily see the color behind it. So that's kind of a cool other types of aspect of it. Other types of paint kind of end up being a little bit more transparent, so you can see the different layers as, you know, like the different color layering effects. But it's really easy to get, not easy, but it's, easier to get bolder prints with acrylic. So here's the outside of my hedgehog. And I'm going to use the middle part. And I'm going to try, since the background is, let's see what color. I'm going to go with white for the inside part of the hedgehog. And I should let this dry in between layers, but I'm going to see what we can come up with. Cross your fingers. All right. I think this is gonna look great. I'm really excited. That turned out really good. I'm happy with that. So now I just need to use the fine brush and go in and add the detail of the base. So you can see two very distinct colors here for the spiny part of the hedgehog and the center part of our hedgehog friend. And I'm going to use black to get my detail. So I'm going to put some black in here. I'm going to use a little bit of this red that I have and a little bit of this white because I want to give my hedgehog nice rosy cheeks. Just to make sure everybody knows how cute our little hedgehog friend is. Now I'm going to go in and add detail. So I'm going to give hedgehog here some eyes and a nice smile. Let's see, let's give him a little nose and some arms. And now I'm going to outline my lily over here so it really pops. And I'm going to add the details for the green parts of the lily. And yeah, these are my prints. I think I need a little bit more in my hedgehog print, so I'm going to add, where is it? I'm going to do a star. So I'm going to use the yellow, and I'm going to mix it with the white just so that it's a slightly different shade. So I am tinting with the white actually, and I would be shading with the black. So tinting makes it a little bit lighter and shading makes it a little bit darker. So here's my tinted yellow. And you can see the difference here. And that's super cute. And I'm going to come back with my black brush. I'm going to make some outlines so this star is really nice and visible. And while I'm at it, I'm going to outline my hedgehog too. All right, and here are some prints. Now to clean up, I'm going to make sure that when this is all nice and dry, all this edging tape goes into the garbage. And I'm going to wipe off my brushes. I've got some cold water. I like to reiterate, you get a lot more life out of your brushes if you wash them in cold water, because a lot of times the glue that kind of holds the bristles on underneath, like this metal part, will wear out if you use hot water. So there you have it. Those are my prints. I hope you had a wonderful day at Cap at Home, and we'll see you next time.